Today on the Broadway Shuffle, a Texas Tech sports podcast, we are pleased to be joined by Board of Regents Vice Chairman Dusty R. Womble. Dusty, welcome to the Broadway Shuffle for the second time. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great. The last time I was on with you guys, I guess it was right before game day, maybe. And y'all had a whole list of people that visited with you that day.
We did. This is just your show. You're the only special guest on today's episode. So
fantastic.
We're glad to have you. And we had you last time before that BYU game in November, before a huge win for Texas Tech. This time we get you right after Texas Tech basketball goes into Ames, Iowa, and knocks off number 4 Iowa State. We're going to get into, obviously, your role and how much you care and love about the Texas Tech basketball team. But as a fan, watching the team go in there on Saturday, come out with the upset, what was that like for you, and what are your thoughts on Texas Tech's upset against Iowa State?
It was awesome. It's, I think, more difficult for me to watch a game on TV than it is to be there in person. I find myself much more wrapped up in a game on TV. I think I feel like I can't have any control, like I have some control if I'm there in person, but it's more strenuous on me to watch a game on TV than it is in person. I think I probably underestimated how good we were going to be after JT went down, and I talked to Grant last night for a bit after they got back to town, and I think he is. I think he was aware of how good this team was. We just couldn't get all the pieces together. So we were without Josiah till the end of January. Luke played early and then got hurt. We missed him. And Mariel has been injured throughout the season. And so we just haven't really ever been able to have all of the pieces in place. Probably the Arizona game was really the first big game we've had where we had all the pieces there, and even that game, I think, trying to think of who stayed back, but somebody didn't travel to Arizona. I have to think about who that was. Nolan Groves. Nolan didn't travel to Arizona, so I think Grant knew that this was a very talented team that had all the pieces, and we just really couldn't ever put them all on the court at the same time or healthy at the same time.
It seems like every coach in any sport says that they welcome adversity because it helps them, learn what their team's about and improve. But I feel like Grant really enjoys the moments where he goes through adversity. Do you agree with that? And from your perspective, how do you think he changes the way he coaches when something happens like JT going down?
Well, I think he doesn't necessarily change. I think if you look at the way Grant coaches those teams, not only this year's team, but other teams, it's play for each other, put the team before yourself, deal with whatever the obstacles are, whether you're down late in the game, whether you're on the road, and whether you're getting bad calls, whether you have injuries or whatever. I think he certainly preaches you deal with whatever comes to you and make the very most out of it. And so I don't think his coaching has changed. Now the offense has obviously changed with the loss of JT, but it's got some aspects to it that we didn't have before. You don't replace a player of JT's caliber, that one of the two or three best players in the country, and not feel it. But I think they've just done an amazing job of really retooling, pulling together, and we were fortunate to some extent. We had a couple of home games that we could get our feet underneath us, but then you go on the road to Ames, and there's no place tougher to play than Hilton. And that crowd was ready for us. They knew how important it was. That team knew how important it was. I mean, it's two teams that were tied for second place in the Big 12. And it was not any less important to them than it was to us. And so to go in there and do what we did, and we really could have beat them much worse. We controlled that game really from about the 8-minute mark in the first half. And to some extent, the last 2 or 3 minutes made the game look really more competitive than it was. And we did it with foul trouble. Probably, I'm pretty sure that Christian sat on the bench more in this game than he's sat on any game, certainly any conference game. And I would be surprised if he didn't sit more in this game than he did any game the rest of the year. So really a credit to those those kids and all the and the way they've really pulled together.
Dusty, I love that answer. For those of you who have never seen or listened to Dusty, you may recognize him. He usually sits in that spot right next to Coach McCasland at the home games. So you're privy to, maybe more audio coverage than most of us that watch the games from different spots in the stadium. Talk to me a little bit about what that's like. Grant's a very fiery character, but he didn't ever seem to be, he's not explicit. What is that like sitting there? Do you got any good stories on Grant? What's the funniest thing he said there without maybe embarrassing him? I've always wondered, I know he's not saying great job a lot of the times, but what is that like?
He is talking constantly. I mean, I told somebody the other day, it's not like sitting next to John Wooden that used to sit with his program rolled up at UCLA and just let the games play out. He brings the energy. He does that in practice. He does that in film session. He does that every day, every time he's around those kids. And but he talks a lot more than I sat courtside opposite the guest bench. And so you can see how animated he is, but he is talking to a player or the officials constantly. And he has a running dialogue with the officials. And
so do I, by the way.
Yeah, I've never. He does not use profanity. I've never heard him say a profane word in the 3 years he's been here. But the players know where they stand with Grant. The officials know what he thinks about how they're handling their part of the job, and it's a lot. I will say that. I mean, he puts 120% of energy into his job of coaching over there.
And Dusty, real quick, follow up on that. You've been around the program quite a bit. The two probably high watermarks for coaching were Beard and McCasland in my mind. Talk a little bit about the differences that you see, just real briefly, compared to how they kind of manage and run their programs, because both reached really successful heights here at Tech, and I think they've both done it differently. What have you kind of noticed are the big differences there, either good or bad?
Yeah, well, very different personalities, very different styles of coaching. I would say that Chris was really good at emotionally getting the teams prepared. Grant and his staff is really good at X's and O's and execution, exploiting weaknesses. I would say Grant's staff is much better with in-game adjustments and halftime adjustments than maybe Chris was. Chris did a really good job of really building our home crowds. He understood the value of having a very energized and bought-in student body, and then our crowds really built around. They really built up when Chris was here. Chris was fortunate that Tubby left him a lot of talent, and so he did not walk into an empty cupboard. He had a lot of talent here to build the program on, and back at that time, it was not the transfer mania. Chris was sort of unique in his first 2 or 3 years, but because he took some senior transfers, and back then that was really all you could get was senior transfers. Because if you transferred back prior to 2016, or maybe prior to 2018. You had to set out a year if you were not a senior. So Chris sort of pioneered the idea of taking a transfer, and we brought kids in that became very very critical to our success via transfers. Now, if a coach leaves and you don't have much, you can really rebuild that whole roster in one recruiting class. You couldn't do that when Chris got here. And so he was fortunate that he had a lot of the pieces of the team that went to the regional final against Villanova that were here, and really the team that went to the Final Four. A lot of those pieces were pieces that Tubby had left when Chris got here. But
Dusty,
they're a lot different. I will say this: Grant is a 4 on a 1 to 100 scale on high maintenance, and Chris Beard was not. So
leave it at that.
So,
yeah. Dusty,
I
you alluded
cannot
to a little
imagine.
bit.
I would not trade Grant for any coach in the country.
I love that.
I mean, he is. Not only is he a great fit here, and not only is he a great man and representative of the university, he is a great coach, and he's great at talent evaluation. He's great at recruiting. He's great at finding the pieces that fit with what he's trying to do. And he's a great builder of his staff, not only his coaching staff, but his support staff. Everybody there is cohesive. Everybody is on the same page, trying to accomplish the exact same thing. They know what they're doing. And he's a great coach. I mean, it's not just because he's a personal friend of mine. I wouldn't trade him for any coach in the country because I don't think anybody can win like he can win. So
I love that.
Yeah, I think we all would agree. I mean, he's been a great fit here, but he's also accomplished a lot in quite a short amount of time. Just kind of shifting gears a little bit. NIL, we all know what that's been like for college athletics. We know that's changed the game in a lot of ways for Texas Tech as a whole as well. What are your thoughts on the NIL process? What are some things that people may not know about NIL and that whole area of college sports that is so much different than even 4 or 5 years ago at this point?
Yeah, it's really change that continues to change. This time, maybe last year, maybe a year and a half ago, we thought that the idea of sort of the rev share was going to put everybody at basically a level playing field of $20.5 million. And the challenge then was, how do you allocate that $20.5 million of rev share across your different sports? And because every dollar you spend on tennis is a dollar that you can't spend on football, or if you spend it on track and field, you can't spend it on either men's or women's basketball. And so we all maybe hoped and thought that was going to sort of establish a salary cap that we all worked underneath there. And we were perfectly happy to do that, because we believe our coaches and what we've built, if you give us a level playing field, we're going to excel. And so we thought that was sort of the way things were going to work. It's not really how it has worked. We have this salary cap or this rev share number, but it's almost become the bottom line number instead of the cap. It's almost become the floor that every program really has to figure out, how do they spend $20.5 million. And then it becomes, how do you get what they call true NIL above that 20.5 number to compensate athletes for sports maybe that don't have rev share. If you're looking at softball for us, or baseball has a really limited rev share number to work with. And so then it became, how do you build these rosters out with true NIL dollars? So before the rev cap came in, NIL was sort of it was almost pay for play, really and truly. You did not have to justify. There was the language around it that it had to be legitimate NIL money, and you couldn't offer it before they were at your, before they had really signed papers and were at your school. But after that point, the rev we were paying athletes, and not only we, but I think we were guilty is the wrong word, but we leveraged the NIL collective opportunity probably better than anybody else did. And we use those NIL dollars very effectively across multiple sports. And so now we've got the rev share number, but everybody's trying to figure out how do we pay athletes more than what they can get in rev share, and that's through the legitimate NIL. And now there's a clearinghouse. You have to send the deals to a clearinghouse. They approve that those are commercially viable and commercially justified, and you have to get that approval. That it becomes a gate to really get that. But I know there's schools that are spending a lot of money above rev share.
Yeah, that's what it certainly seems like right now. When you initially wanted to invest in Texas Tech athletics, what were your expectations? Did you foresee something like this happening with NIL? And then what does a return on investment look like for you? Your name's on the athletic facilities. Is it championships? Is it just a better life for kids? Is it both? What does the ROI look like when it comes to investing in college athletics?
Most of my two large investments in athletics, that would be the two practice facilities for men's or for basketball, men and women, and then the football facility. And for a long time, I was a pretty ardent opponent of NIL. I felt like that was a path that was not good for the sport, not good for the athletes, and not good for the sport, because it was diverting money that here before that point had really supported so many other sports.
Sure.
For a long time, and still today, football is the bell cow for our athletic department. Mm-hmm. Men's basketball is also profitable for us because if you make the tournament and you get a lot of TV deals and you sell, 16,000 tickets a game and all of those things, we can, it covers their expenses. But all of the other sports are net losers from a financial aspect. Nobody else has the revenue dollars from ticket sales or TV deals to cover their expenses. And that's to a varying degree, but they're all losers. And so but in that model, all schools could use football and men's basketball to finance all of what I would call non-revenue sports. So either Olympic sports or, we don't generate a lot of money from our men's or women's golf program. But it's important to us. It's good for the school. It matters. And we want those student athletes to have the opportunity to come and compete at the collegiate level. It's important for our Olympic teams that we have a sort of a training ground. And it's a key part of the fabric of college athletics. And I always felt that NIL was a threat to, certainly a threat to the model and a threat to a lot of those other sports that I thought were very important to the college experience.
Interesting.
Since that time, I've embraced NIL, not to the extent that some of our other donors have, but it is certainly a key piece of what we have to do to be competitive. And so I've sort of relented off of my never NIL to actually be a supporter of it.
That's really interesting.
I'm very glad to hear that last part, as I'm sure Grant McCasland is as well. But I know you have a big family with 10 grandchildren. I'm curious if they all love Texas Tech as much as you do.
Well, they all. So I've got 11 now. One of my daughters, Brienne, had a little baby girl about 5 weeks ago.
Congratulations!
And yes, she's always dressed up in Tech gear on game day,
good,
and so they're all here in town. We're fortunate to have them all here. They're all, whether they like it or not, they're going to grow up in red and black and be indoctrinated into the Red Raider Nation. But my kids have all been raised in Lubbock. One of them went to Pepperdine. One of them went to Rice. One of them went to LCU. Actually, two of them went to LCU. One of them via Oklahoma Christian. So my wife graduated from Tech about 4 years ago, and she and I met on a blind date in our freshman year, and then we got married. She didn't finish school, and she went back about 6 years ago and finished her degree. And
Nice.
so I've got Leisha, and then my youngest daughter, Alyssa, graduated from Tech. But we don't have a lot of Tech. Actually, Brienne, my middle daughter, graduated from Tech as well. She went one semester at A&M and decided that was not the place for her.
Good. Smart.
And,
Well done.
That's right. Came back and was very involved. She was a head twirler here, and
Wow.
she was, but we hadn't had that many kids go through Texas Tech, but they all know what the football schedule is. They know not to plan weddings or anything like that on a possible game day, and they know you can't schedule anything in March or the first weekend in April because we may need to be traveling.
Good. Well,
That's
whoever went out
awesome.
to Pepperdine is complete. They said, "Get me out of Lubbock and let me find the complete opposite
Yeah,
of going to Malibu."
exactly.
That's pretty funny. That's cool.
She paid her dues though. She did her
Okay.
medical. She went to medical school after that, and she did that in Houston. So
She came
Yeah.
back. Good. Okay.
paid her dues. That's
Good.
right.
That's awesome.
Dusty, I love that. And you've obviously done a ton for the university. You're a massive part of this university, not just athletically, and what you do for a lot of the things academically is commendable and laudable as well. I know there's a big, at least publicized meeting with the White House in the coming weeks on their college athletics roundtable. For us, I'll just call us laymen or people that don't really know what's going on. What are you kind of expecting out of that? What are you expecting? And not that anybody knows, but over the next 18 months, are you hoping or expecting things to change in any material way?
Well, I actually think that meeting's this week. I think when it is, and I think it depends on how much pressure the White House puts on the commissioners. I think that most of the commissioners, other than the Big Ten and the SEC commissioners, are lined up behind a program that benefits all the conferences and all the schools, and certainly all the power conferences. The Big Ten and the SEC seem to be a bit of an outlier in both of those, and we'll have to see what happens. I think the biggest problem, in my opinion, is leadership. We don't have a strong leadership. The NCAA has sort of fumbled their opportunity to lead intercollegiate athletics, and they've done that repeatedly over a long period of time. And so it really has defaulted now to the conference commissioners, but there's no common voice between those conference commissioners. And until we get a common mind between certainly the Power Four conferences on a solution that benefits all the schools, not just not just the SEC, but the SEC. If you look at the financial considerations of the lower half of the Big Ten, they're struggling financially.
Sure.
There's certainly schools in the SEC, maybe a larger percentage of schools in the Big 12 and the ACC that are struggling to be competitive in this new landscape. Until we have a common voice that says we're going to do what's best for college athletics, and not to the detriment of our athletes, but to the betterment of all these programs in each one of these institutions, we're going to flounder, and we're going to maybe create a bigger gap between the haves and the have-nots. And that's not necessarily that the SEC versus the Big 12, because even in the SEC, there are a big gap between the haves at the upper end of that conference and the have-nots in the bottom half. Certainly in the Big Ten, as well. I mean, I think if you've seen some of the financial numbers that UCLA is dealing with, and Rutgers and other schools, and the model we have right now, I think everyone has said, is not sustainable, and it's really not. And we're not trying to sustain it over the long haul. What we're trying to do is make sure that our brand is prominent and successful until sanity prevails. And when there is a solution that these schools and these conferences can get behind, we want to make sure that the double T is one of the logos that everybody expects to be in that mix, just as you would look at a Florida State or a North Carolina or a Michigan State or USC. So that's really our objective, is to make sure that we are successful and relevant and our brand is elevated, because there are going to be some schools that maybe you would have considered in the mix 8 years ago, that today, when you really look at their fan base, their facilities, their financial positions, their commitment to be involved with big time athletics, and I won't name schools that I would put in that category, but I think there are going to be a lot of logos that would have been considered in the mix 8 years ago that are not considered there today.
We can talk about Oklahoma State publicly. I think that's fine.
I didn't say that.
Yeah, you didn't say it.
Great. Oklahoma State has got great facilities, and they have a lot of really powerful and effective donors. Their athletic success has obviously been a depression for their fan base, for their support. But they've got the muscle to get it done behind there. They don't have a Boone Pickens now, but Boone was not the only powerful donor that was behind Oklahoma State.
Totally.
We were doing so well, Zyler. You had it going for 26 minutes, then you had to ruin it.
Sorry.
Yeah. Dusty, obviously college athletics has changed quite a bit. You mentioned the centralized voice of sanity in a way that needs to be had. If you were the commissioner of college football, other than that being obviously being had there with the centralized voice, what would you like to see to improve college athletics? And you touched on a little bit of it, but in the next 5, 10, 15 years going forward into this new era of NIL and revenue sharing and all these things.
Yeah, I think, first of all, we need to be able to collectively bargain our deals. So we are leaving a lot of money, maybe $5 to $6 billion on the table, because we are not taking a cohesive package to the market. We have conferences competing with each other for TV deals, for exposure. There is an enormous demand among the public for our product, and we dilute it down. I mean, we're going to play a Kent State or a Northeastern Louisiana, and when we should be playing a South Carolina that weekend, or we should be playing, UCLA or Washington, and we should have marquee matchups every week. I think everybody should understand what the criteria is for getting into the playoffs, and it should not be, subjective. I mean, everybody should understand. Our travel policy right now is crazy. You have West Coast teams traveling across the country to play, a tennis tournament or girls basketball, and it's unfair to our athletes to ask them to do that. And so we have to have a cohesive product that goes to the market, the media market, and maximizes our revenue. That revenue delta would allow all these schools to fund all of their Olympic sports and really would sustain it. I think we have to figure out how we're going to police each one of these schools and how we're going to police how you spend your money. My idea there is to really have the athletes, when you sign a deal with us, you give us your tax returns, because the IRS is actually the entity that can identify if you're taking in $500,000 and you're not paying tax on it. The IRS doesn't care that you're a great soccer goalie or an offensive guard. If you collected $500,000 and you didn't pay tax on it, there are repercussions. And those repercussions can be long past after you left school. Your tax return isn't going to get audited 6 months after the end of the year. It might be 6 years later. But there are real repercussions for not paying taxes on the income that you've gained. And I think that's a way to really hold the whole system between boosters and our athletes accountable, and to make that really police itself to some extent. And now there's enough money there's enough money flowing to our athletes that the IRS is going to care. If it was $500, they're not going to worry about that. But if you're talking about $500,000 or $1.5 million of revenue that you're not paying tax on, the IRS is going to care about that. And so I think that's sort of a mechanism that's in place that we could use to really police this whole part of the business. And all the schools have to agree. And that Texas Tech is one of those. And if we say, hey, you're going to have $30 million that you can spend on your athletes, then $30 million it is. Now, I think it has to be by sport. You can't have a school like UConn that's able to spend $20.5 million and they don't care about football. They only care about basketball, whether that's their men's and women's. So I think you really have to say you can spend $8.5 million on men's basketball. You can spend $15 million on football. You can spend this much on swimming or this much on soccer or softball or whatever that is. And that's how that needs to work. You can't have schools drop sports for the benefit of being more competitive in other sports. And the federal government's going to have to help us there, because as soon as we do that and you have an athlete that says, hey, I've got somebody that's willing to pay me $2 million to play tennis, and you're telling me I can't collect that money because of this. I think we are telling you that you need to be a professional tennis player. I used the USGA for a long time. They have protected amateur golf, and they have really specific rules about how you're an amateur and how you're a professional. And amateurs can play in the U.S. Open, but if you're going to play on the PGA, you're a professional, and you can't go play in the USAM. And there are rules, and the USGA was able to really maintain amateur golf for decades and decades.
Great point.
And the NCAA was totally incapable of doing that, and so we're going to need federal guidelines and federal legislation to really be able to make this work.
It's a great answer.
Well, Mr. Womble, it sounds like you got to get involved, because that all made a lot of sense to me. So
I think I'll let Cody do that.
Yeah, whatever you got to do, man.
Up to his armpits in this, and and he's got the appetite for it. Cody understands all the politics around it, and he's got a name that is respected not only in the White House but amongst the commissioners' offices and the presidents across the country, and so. And I'm not saying that just because Cody is a Red Raider and he and I, are friends. I'm saying that because he is one of the key people that can fix college athletics. And there's a lot of people lined up behind Cody's agenda, and a lot of people that have helped form Cody's agenda. It's not like this is Cody's idea. He has really built a coalition of people that are all behind a solution that makes sense. And so, hopefully we can get some support at the federal level to bring some sanity to the college athletics.
Sure. Well, we're blessed to have both of you as Red Raiders for sure, too. I know we're running short on time, so I wanted to get you out of here with two questions. But you started in code in 1980 as a student. And so that, I think a lot of people are like, that's crazy that you're able to build such a great company. You later became Tyler Technologies, that Conrad, I believe, actually worked for a time. And so, and then obviously with Mass Rider Capital in 2012, founding that private equity company. Can you talk about just your advice to aspiring entrepreneurs and your role in business and what that looks like, and anything you might be able to give some input on that to people that want to start their own businesses and have a future as well?
Yeah, well, I think that's one of the great things about this country is that you have the opportunity to succeed. You also have the opportunity to fail. And I think that's part of the beauty of what this country provides for people. I think my advice when people come and talk to me about this is, at least from my experience, nothing has been an overnight success. As you said, we started that, Alicia and I started that business before I got out of college, but it was decades before we really started to see the fruits of that labor. Mask Rider Capital has been around for 14 years now. We've really been serious about it over the last maybe 5 years, and we've had success. But it's not because we came up with a brilliant idea and then sold the idea and recognized success. It's like we came out with an idea and we shaped it and brought people together and grinded that out and found a way to finance it and dealt with all the issues that any new business is going to have, and execute, try to get, the biggest key is surround yourself with really good people, because it is hard to not be successful when you have a lot of successful people around you. And I think that's the real key at Mask Rider, is that we've got great people there. That was certainly the key with my experience at Encode and later Tyler, is that there was just such an accumulation of really talented people that you get really good people on board and get out of their way and let them be successful and reward them for being successful and align those goals. It's inevitable that you'll be successful if you're patient and continue to execute. So
that's awesome, man. Well, and finally, what advice would you have for the Broadway Shuffle podcast? Anything we could do to double up on that success?
I think you guys are successful. I've seen your following. I've seen you guys walk through Raiderville. I mean, y'all are celebrities. People know who you are.
Don't tell Conrad that. It goes to
there are people in my office that watch you guys religiously. So I know that you guys are successful. But again, you get 4 really talented people together that share a common goal. It's going to be successful.
Well, calling Conrad a celebrity just completely tanked our show for sure, because now it's all to his head. So,
Dusty, I appreciate it, but that is far from the truth. Far from the truth. It's true about Zyler, Brennan, and Clayton, but not me. Yeah, that's for sure.
If you'll let Clayton, Brennan, and Conrad know where they could find a 4th talented podcaster, we'd really have something going here. But,
we're just taking the show to a new level. Well, Mr. Womble, we seriously appreciate your time. Thank you so much for taking time to be a part of our show for the second time. We look forward to continue to speak with you and for all you do for the university as a board of regent, as a basketball and ambassador, and what you do for our athletic program and our just college in general. We're so thankful for you and your family as well too. So hope you have a great week, and let's go to another Final Four. All right.
I tell you what, this team has got the ability to do it. I think you've seen a glimpse Saturday of where these guys could go. If you can go into Hilton and beat Iowa State, you get the right draw. You're going to have to win a game or two that you're, like we did against Arkansas last year, where you're like, wow, I thought we were toast, and somehow we find a way to do that. Florida was beat in the game before us. We had them beat. They get through both of those games, and so it's a little bit of the luck of the draw and see how the cards fall. But I tell you what, this team will give you a chance, and that coaching staff will win a national title. I will tell you that. And so if we continue to support them and give them the opportunity, they'll win it here. And I'm excited about this year. I'm excited about what we're building. Joey's going to have a team that is better next year than this year, and so this coming team is going to be more talented. We'll see how the bounces go, and can we stay healthy, and can we take care of business. But I think we have a taste of what it's like to be in the playoffs and be in the mix, and we're going to have the ability to do that in football. Track won 2 titles yesterday in men's and women's. I mean, softball has been ranked number 1, certainly one of the 2 or 3 best teams in the country. We got, our golf team is ranked in the top 10. We got a lot of stuff going on here in the positive direction. Our Lady Raider team is ranked and, having the best year they've had in maybe a decade. So it's really exciting about what we've got going on.
Conrad, what do you always say? It's a great time to be a Red Raider.
It's the best time in history to be a Red Raider right now. It's only going to get better.
Never a better time than right now. I agree with that, Conrad.
Yes, sir. Well, Dusty, thank you so much. We'll be back on Thursday to break down the rest of the basketball season. Look ahead to the Big 12 tournament as well, too. But for Zyler Buchanan, Clayton Anderson, Conrad Mills, I am Brennan Baxter. Dusty Womble, thank you so much for being a part of the Broadway Shuffle, and we will see all of you guys on Thursday.
He makes the catch. He's going all the way. 20, 15.